Life is often so busy, taking us here, there, seemingly everywhere. When you aren't able to make it to church, we hope you are fed and nourished by listening to the preaching of God's Word wherever you are at the moment. In the meantime, take care, and God bless.
Good morning. Good to be with you all this morning here at St. Andrew, and to all of those who are joining us online as one community together. So earlier this summer, we had an issue in our backyard at our house. Our fence had slowly started to tilt over. Many of you probably know how it goes, right? It's one year, it's passable. The next year, not quite. The next year, a tree falls in your backyard and does it in, right? That's what happened to us. Our fence finally was totally kaput. The issue was we didn't really want to replace the fence in our backyard, neither the funds required to replace the fence, nor did we really need a fence in our backyard. We don't have a dog who runs wild in the backyard, and we kind of like our neighbors a little bit. So we were just going to haul it away. But the problem, of course, for me is that I assumed that this was something that I had to figure out how to do all by myself. So I had a list of possibilities of, I could hire some wonderful young adults or high school students from St. Andrew, and they could come and help me haul this fence away. Or we could find someone online. We could maybe find a handy person who could help us out, who could take care of this fence. All of these assumptions, of course, that I would have to do it or figure out how to do it all by myself. But then one afternoon, I was out in my backyard pulling weeds and, of course, just all of the upkeep that we have with these wonderful yard spaces. And I met my neighbor, who I hadn't actually gotten a chance to meet. They had moved in mid-pandemic, and we just hadn't gotten a chance to meet one another. And he comes over and he says, and we introduced one another and got to know each other, and he said, "Hey, would you like a little bit of help with the fence?" Now, someone at the 9 o'clock service said, he was telling you it was an eyesore. I intentionally chose to believe that he was actually trying to help me out and be part of the community. Now, either I'm naive or, somewhere in between, but I said, I would absolutely love the help. It's been on our to-do list for forever, and we haven't quite made it to it yet. So we found a dumpster and how to get rid of the wood, and we picked a weekend, and he said, I've got a chainsaw, I'll help you take care of it. I think it'd only take a couple hours. And so a couple weeks later, just a couple of hours, and the fence was gone, and we have nice woods, and now I actually know my neighbor. So today we're asking the point, what's the point of community? And I think for many of us, we assume, and we're conditioned to assume in this great, wonderful United States of ours, that we have to do this stuff on our own. There's all sorts of images of this. One of my favorites, and I love this speech, is Teddy Roosevelt's Man in the Arena. It sets up this rugged individual who is taking on the vision of the future. Or maybe we have another image of pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps. Or maybe it's another image of that lone person heading down that pathway, carving out that thing all on their own, a vision of the future, this really beautiful image of someone working hard and taking care of the future. But what I learned, of course, this summer with the fence is that I'm not really alone in this stuff. There are people in my life that I can rely on. There are people in my life that I can depend on. I'm not alone. I have a community all around me. It reminded me of this great phrase, and it's a parable that I think many of us have heard about. But whenever I stumble upon a parable, I'm really nerdy this way, this is true confession, I try to find out where the parable comes from. Is anyone else like this? I see blank faces. That tells me that I'm just the weirdo standing up here. That's fine. But I found this parable, and so I'm going to introduce it as this. It's a parable of unknown origin. Turns out we don't know where it came from. I did the research. It takes a village to raise a child. I'm sure that many of us have heard this before. It takes a village to raise a child. There have been many times in this wonderful journey of parenting that I have not taken this advice. where I've assumed that it falls on me, or actually my wonderful partner Hannah and I. We do this together. It isn't a solo venture, parenting for us, but we've assumed that it's something that we kind of have to handle. So whatever turn it takes with our kids, that they're doing something new and we don't quite know what to do with it, we figure that we have to do it on our own rather than relying on the village all around us. I think this is a reminder that we have a community around us, not only for the parenting that we might do, but for the relationships that we hold, for our jobs, for our vocations, for the ways that we serve in our neighborhoods. We are a part of a village, of a community that helps us when we need it. I'm going to come back to this phrase in a minute. But before we get there, I wanted to tell you a little bit about a vision of community that I was taught by Pastor Christine Ruth, who was a pastor here a number of years ago. She described different layers of community because I think it's helpful for us to think about this word community in some different terms because it's tossed around all the time, and sometimes we might just ask the question, what's the point in community? So the first layer of community that Pastor Christine taught me was the front porch community. Now, these are the folks that we hold maybe at arm's length. And so I'll use the classic example that someone comes knocking on my door, and this was a number of years ago. Someone running for state senate, I think it was, knocked on my door, and I said, hello, and nice to meet you, and I'm Matthew, and who are you, and what are you running for? And that was about it. I wasn't going to invite him into the backyard for a barbecue. I wasn't going to have him at our kitchen table and talk through issues. It was just nice to meet you, and I appreciate it, and we will or won't vote for you, right? It's that kind of conversation. Or then there's the other one, which is, I think, my favorite sort of door knocking, which is when the Girl Scouts come once a year, knock, 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 and they know that they have me in the palm of their hand. This is a hint for any Girl Scouts in the room or online. Anytime you come, it's usually, almost always, a yes. I would love a box of Thin Mints, and I'd love the peanut butter patties, and I'd like the caramel delights. Please and thank you very much. But of course, the Girl Scouts, I might give them some money and buy a couple boxes, but that's about where it goes. They're front porch sorts of conversations, front porch sorts of communities. These are really good people that we tend to know, but they're just part of a broader community. The next layer of our community is the dining room community. Now, this is a picture of our dining room. Isn't it magnificent? Just kidding. This is definitely not a picture of our dining room. I just searched dining rooms and found this beautifully appointed dining room. You'll notice that it's missing sticky fingers from children and crayons on the walls. That would be the hallmark, I think, of our dining room table. But it's a place where we might entertain folks, where we might invite a community over to have conversation and support. Maybe our dining room relationships are people that we go out to dinner with or to lunch with. Maybe they're people that we attend theater events with or go to musical concerts with. They're people that we might be out late into the evening talking about what's going on in our world or in our life with. These are parts of our community, people that we rely on and invite into our lives, right? And then Pastor Christine had one more layer of community, and that is the kitchen community. Now, I already tipped my hand. This is decidedly not our kitchen. This is maybe like our dream kitchen. It's beautiful. It's perfect. There is not anything missing and out of place. So I actually think the kitchen community people is more like this. We invite them into the unvarnished, the unfinished, the imperfect parts of who we are. These are folks that if you're having that dinner party, you invite them in to see the mess behind the scenes, to help do the dishes, to help get the roast out of the oven. These are the people that end up getting to hear what's going on in our lives. These are the people that we end up leaning on, that we end up relying on, that we end up counting on. Sometimes these are the people that really hold us up when we need it, are the kitchen folks. So we've got front porch and dining room and kitchen community. Now, this isn't anything judgmental about these different layers. I'm not going to try to convince you that everyone should be kitchen people. No, if I were to go to that Girl Scout who's coming up to my door and just trying to get cookies and say, well, you know, I'm really stressed out at work because of this. Oh, and also there's climate change, and also there's political indecision, and I can't stand this, and I can't stand that, and I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. She'd just run away and go, tell her mom or something. I think I'd chase her away, and I'd maybe be a few pounds lighter, I think. But anyway, this isn't to say that we all should be kitchen people. It's to say that we have all of these different kinds of relationships to rely upon. We have all of this community around us. Whether they're the kitchen people or the living room people, the dining room people, or the front porch folks in our lives. I want to bring us back to that parable one more time. It takes a village to raise a child, a parable of unknown origin. I mentioned earlier that there have been times in my journey as a parent when I've forgotten this parable, when I've tried to do it on my own, when I haven't leaned on the community all around me. But I think I'm getting sentimental at this moment in my life. I think I'm seeing the hinges in our kids' ages right now, that I'm seeing where we've been and where we're going, that I wanted to share with you part of my village, part of our village, the people who have helped support us as parents. And I had to look up how long this village has been a part of our lives, and I found this. You can't see it from where you're sitting, but this is a picture of my eldest at about 8 months old with finger paint all over her face and her hands, and she's got a big grin on her face. Now, the story behind this picture is there were approximately 3, maybe 4 people who could get a smile out of my eldest daughter when she was this age. Most of those people were people related. Her mom and her dad, yeah, we could get smiles. A couple of her grandparents could get smiles out of this kid at this age. And one other person, and that's Miss Caitlin Bach, who's Pastor Gail's daughter, who took care of Alma in the room right over there, and she could get the biggest smile out of this kid. And so they made this really cool Happy Christmas gift, Alma 2014, the most famous reindeer of all. How cute is that? But the village that these people have been for us is more than we could ever ask for. It was on mornings early in the morning, cold February or January mornings, when I could hardly get both kids in the door, when their hair was tousled and their socks were mismatched and their fingers were sticky, and I was about up to here when Miss Melanie, who's the director of our early learning, would say, "Hey, you're doing a great job, Dad." And I'd say, "You didn't see me 3 minutes ago." But it was that word of encouragement, that word of "you can do this," that I needed, that I still need at this moment. It was Miss Debbie in the kitchen, who to this day makes dishes that my kids will not eat when we make them, but when Miss Debbie makes them. We made tater tot casserole a few months ago, perfectly made. I think Hannah did this. It was crispy tater tots, lots of cheese, and the delicious fixings inside. They each take one bite and they say, "It's not Miss Debbie's." The people who can get your children to eat some vegetables and some fruit and some good things for them, that's our village, right? These are our people. I remember Miss Lizzie and Miss Amanda, Miss Abby, Miss Maria. I remember Miss Sarah. I remember Miss Karina. All of these people who have carried our children to be who they are. And I'm crying because they're that important. And because just a few weeks ago, our daughter Dorothy graduated from preschool and is on to the next journey. And I'm not okay with it still. I'll be a puddle when she gets on the bus for kindergarten, but I know that there will be a village supporting her and gathering around her. And what's wonderful about these folks is that even when she's 10 or 12 or 14, I bet they'll get a smile out of her and they'll know who she is. We have a village of people around us. And it does indeed take a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to raise each and every one of us. It takes a village to support us in who we are. There's one final area of those relationships, of that community that Pastor Christine talked about. And she talked about refrigerator privileges. Those people in our lives who you just say, come on in, help yourself to a soda in the fridge, help yourself to yogurt or fruit or whatever's left in there, check the expiration date first, right? It's those sorts of people, right? These people that have open access to our lives. And what did I see the other day as I was walking in the St. Andrew kitchen? But this is Miss Debbie's fridge. And what's that picture of? You see the wings up there? You can't quite see it. But that's Dorothy. Kitchen privileges. People in our lives who know us and who love us still, right? These are the people. Community is everywhere around us. It surprises us when we least expect it. It binds us together. And there are forces in this world that want to tell us that we are being pulled apart and facing one another so that we should be angry at one another. Some people have said that social media pits us one against the other, that pushes us and pulls us in directions that we shouldn't be going. But guess what? This wonderful community is also present online. We are a community of St. Andrew brought together by this magic of the internet. Whether you're sitting in your pajamas this morning or whether you're sitting right here, we're all brought together. I was sent a TikTok the other day. And I know this is newfangled, it still is for me, I'm new to it. But TikTok is one of the newer social media applications where short videos are shared one to the other. But what did I see on TikTok? But I think the most beautiful example of what community can really mean. Two people who don't know each other, but in a moment, and you will see, community happens. So I'm going to set up this video before I show it to you. Mandy Patinkin, a great American treasure, actor, famous, perhaps most famous for his role in the classic film Princess Bride. Are there any fans in the room? One of my favorites, if you have not seen it, I cannot encourage you more to go check out this fantastic film, Princess Bride. In a scene in Princess Bride, Mandy Patinkin is playing Inigo Montoya and is facing off against the six-figured man in this beautiful castle. And the six-fingered man says, or asks a question about what is the thing that he wants the most. And Mandy Patinkin's character responds and says, I want to see my dad again. And a world away, somewhere on the internet, a young woman by the name of Alaska hears that Mandy Patinkin, in that moment and in his acting, was thinking about his father, who he had just lost to cancer. In that moment when he delivered that line. And it was somehow meaningful for her because her father had loved that movie so much. So what does she do? But she goes to TikTok and she asks, is this really true? And I'll let the video take the rest away.
So I guess I just kind of wanted to know if that is, or if that's a true thing, if that's a real thing. I know that Mandy Patinkin has a TikTok, but I don't think that it'll ever go that far, but I was just really curious. Because it means so much more to me now than it ever did. And if this ever does reach Mandy Patinkin, just thank you so much for your performance in that movie because it meant so much to me and my dad. So thank you. That was it. Anyway, just missing my dad. Anyway, okay, that's it.
Thousands of people tagged you so that you'd maybe get to see it, even though she has a couple. But that just killed me.
Killed me too.
So, Alaska,
Yeah.
first of all,
Yeah.
your dad is taking care of you. Secondly, it is true, 100% true. I went outside in this castle and walked around, and I kept talking to my dad, and I said, Dad, I'm going to get this guy. From the minute I read the script, I knew. I said to Kath, I said, I'm going to do this part because in my mind, if I get this six-fingered guy, that means I kill the cancer that killed my dad, and I'll get to visit my dad. And that moment was coming. When I played that scene with Chris, and then I went back out there and talked to my dad. And so you can talk to your dad anytime you want, anywhere you want. If you could somehow let me know your dad's name, because I say prayers for everyone I've ever known, and now I feel like I know you, and therefore I know your dad, and I will list his name in my prayers every day, and they make me feel like they're with me wherever I go, and I'd like your dad to hang out with me.
The people that we have lost in our lives, they aren't gone. The prayers that Mandy Patinkin might offer for this young woman across TikTok bind him together with this person that he's never met. So we today, as this communion of saints, as this community brought together by the creator of the universe, by someone whose love knows no boundaries, we are bound together in this love. So hear the gospel promise that the names that you might talk to while you're wandering around in your castle this afternoon, that they're here. That God is preserving this community, you and me, everyone who was, everyone who will be, in a communion of saints, a communion of sinners, unvarnished, brought together by love. Thanks be to God. Amen.
We hope you found this week's message helpful as you think about how you will live out your faith each day. If you would like to support the ministries at St. Andrew Lutheran Church, you can do so by having your credit card information available and then texting a gift to 952-260-9007.